Alright, this is Big Boss from Foxhound Woods Ball coming to you from Fort Lauderdale, and for this video we're going to be discussing your tactical markers, how to set them up, and things like that. Now, as you can see from the bed behind me, I've got a bulk of Tipman markers that I go through as far as the purposes of my demonstrations and as well as what I play with. Now, for all you fanboys that are going to trounce on me for not having milsigs, dyes, I'll tell you something. I can't afford that stuff. My situation doesn't allow me to use such things or afford them, so I'm working with what I got. As you can see, I've got mag feds, I've got hopper feds, and I'll leave it at that. But as far as this video is concerned, I'm not talking about internal modifications. I'm going to be discussing how the external add-ons could affect your marker as far as its handling characteristics and how they perform in certain scenarios or environments. Now, with that being said, we'll be moving on, but first, a word from our sponsors. Okay, now we're back, and as we begin our look at how to set up your marker, we're going to be starting off with the ass end of the gun first, which would be the butt stocks. Now, you've got a lot of different options out there as far as butt stocks go, depending upon what you put on a tactical marker. The two markers that are being featured right now is the Tipman U.S. Army Alpha Black, which is designed to look like a M4 carbine that's standard issue to the U.S. military, but it's also got the internal setup of your 98 series markers. The second one is my personal marker, which is the Tipman X7 and a Takamo MK7 MagFed conversion kit. Now, when we're talking to stocks, you've got a lot of options, as I said. You've got fixed stocks, retractable stocks, folding stocks. You've got stocks that could both fold and collapse in. Now, the thing is, with that mass being at a certain position, whether it's a folder or a retractable, that will throw off the handling characteristics to a certain extent. But the stock is also designed to provide a solid shooting platform and length of pole to adjust to the shooter in the case of retractable or, more accurately, adjustable stocks. Now, with the Alpha Black in this stock configuration, you've got an AR style butt stock on here, which hold down here and you're able to adjust it to whatever length of pole you need to allow you to have a comfortable grip on the gun. Now, even with the balance of this, it will be somewhat negligible as far as handling it for your stock to be fully out or fully in. This is designed to also work in a close-in environment. So, 8-inch barrel, retractable stock. This makes the marker very easy to handle in a close-in environment, as well as compact enough to maneuver or just keep stashed somewhere in a vehicle when you're on the go for an event or anything like that. Yes, the hopper does add some weight to it fully loaded, but with the stock mounted onto the marker, it does provide the balance point. So the other stock option is a hybrid of a folding retractable buttstock. In my case, I've got an actual Colt subcompact weapon stock on here, SCW. Now, Tippmann end caps will not accommodate the SCW stock, so I managed to get my hands on one from GibbsPaintball.com, if you can see that right here. They're the guys that machine out solid aluminum to make Tippmann end caps for your A5, X7s, 98s, and X7 Phenoms to allow you to accept AR mag stocks and everything. That also includes the buffer tube assembly, such as you can see right here, AR buffer tube, and just attaches like any other AR stock. You can accept military spec or commercial civilian, as well as airsoft. Now, cool thing about this stock is that it can be adjusted for your length of pole, just like any other AR-15 car stock or M4, whatever, any adjustable AR type. But because you could easily fold in the butt and just fold it off to the side, this makes this gun very compact, very maneuverable for close quarters work, or if you just need to store it in a gun bag or anything like that when you're moving. But the drawback is, because my current setup, this makes the marker a little more front heavy. Balancing characteristics are thrown off, but with the stock out, it provides a better balance point on the marker as far as its center of gravity. Now, with that being said, both stocks are very serviceable. Both stocks work very well for their setups. But other than that, you've got many different options you can choose from. You've got air throughs as well as air in. So whatever you choose for your stock, keep in mind that whatever you set up will alter the center of gravity for your marker. So with that being said, we'll be moving on. Okay, now we're back, and as you can see, I swapped things out. Still got my MK7 here, except this time I've also got the addition of a 98 Custom that's set for a light machine gun. But I'm not talking about different gun setups here. What the focus on this particular portion is, we're going to be discussing the sights. Now, for all of us that have done scenario paintball, we've seen the A5s, the X7s, the 98s. They all have some type of iron sight configuration with them. The A5 one was definitely inspired MP5K with the diopter sight on there. The X7 had its own little adjustable sight. Personally, I found the X7 standard sights that came with it to be atrocious, so I got rid of that in exchange for the Magpul Embus flip sights. Great for backup. As you can see, your sights aren't really a big deal if you're doing like basic woods, but scenario players or first strike players, these will be your deadliest component on your guns. As you can see, if you're scopes fail, you've always got iron sights to fall back on one way or the other. Now, as I said for the first strike, guys, since these are adjustable, the front sight post can be adjusted for elevation on this, but your rear sight is also good. You've got a little peep sight and you've got a wide open sight on these to allow for precision shooting. It's also adjustable for windage. So first strike, guys, if you're using something like this, you'll have a decent advantage. Sights aren't exactly needed in some paintball situations. Most players will do what's called spray and pray, or reflex or instinctive shooting, and they'll walk the rope of paint into you. MagFed players, we gotta make every shot count, so you gotta adjust your tactics and get as close as you can to them within the safety rules. Just remember, fast is slow, slow is quick, front sight focus, trigger squeeze, and you got them. Now, moving on from there, with the markers I got set up here, the thing is, for any player who's got some experience with handling a firearm and learning how those sights work, same basic concept. Just match up your rear sight to your front sight post, and you'll be able to get it at certain distances. Keep in mind, these things for regular paintballs aren't specifically meant for precision shooting. They're more made for your general area of shooting. First strike stuff, on the other hand, within 500 feet, it's pinpoint. I've got a few other little devices which I'll be going through momentarily. Okay, now we're back, and before I continue any further on different sights that could be used, I'd like to add on something about iron sights that I forgot about in the last little segment. Now, when it comes down to your iron sights, the distance between your front sight and your rear sight will determine how far out you're able to get a good shot off. Now, the closer your front and rear sights are, could actually throw off your shot by inches, if not feet, if we're talking first strike rounds or live ammo for your real steel. Anybody who knows the AK iron sights can attest to that, if they also use AR platform rifles. So that's a nice little comparison. But moving on, we've got a few little add-ons right here. Let's talk up close and personal with people. If we're doing CQB or stuff like that, your iron sights will be suitable depending upon your level of experience using them. But if you need quick target acquisition and be able to get your shots where you need them in a hurry, up close and personal, nothing says fast acquisition like your basic red dot sight. You can also get holographic reflex sights, EOTech knockoffs, stuff like that. For this one, this is a basic red-green dot, as you can see. Turn it once, and you've got a green dot. Turn it off, turn it on, you got a red. It has different lighting intensities for this particular one. This one was made by Tasco. This is a 1x30. And the reason why it has different intensities would be for different lighting conditions. The same with the red and green dot. The red dot is great for low light conditions where it's a lot darker. The green dot is superb for fast target acquisition during the daytime, and bright light, stuff like that, because the human eye tends to distinguish green more better than any other color in the spectrum. That's why we've got red green dot sights. Now, with the paintball mask, that's going to be hard as hell to have your gun on target when you have the sight directly mounted on top of the gun, because your mask actually provides a little elevation. So, to compensate, or for just better neck relief for real steel shooters, they always tend to get something like this. This is a sight riser. This one is your basic M1913 Picatinny rail interface system, GI US mil spec standard 20mm. Now the purpose of this is for it to sit on the gun, locked into place, and you just take your basic sight, like your red dots, your reflex sights, and you can actually fix them on top of here. This way it provides better relief for your neck, as well as allowing you to be able to get on that sight while wearing a basic paintball mask. That's one of the beauties behind this one. Now, for older styles, we have two different setups here. We've got this kind of like a hybrid deal between the AR carry handle rear side assembly, which is on this this 98 custom. As you can see, I could use this like a carry handle, yet it's still got the rear sight aperture in all its glory from your basic open view to your peep sight. Now, this is the A2 style, so it is adjustable for elevation as well as your windage, making it ideal for more precise shooting, especially if you're running first strikes with this, or if you're running first strikes in general. A marker that has the rear sight that can do windage and elevation in one setup is more than ideal. Now, moving on with that, this one would be an ideal little setup for all you guys that like running your mil sigs. This thing is easy to work with, compact, and you can also, because of its design, you can actually use this like a sight riser. There's no real difference between the carry handle setup on this and this. The elevation is just a little higher up, as you could see on this comparison. So you will be able to have more advantages with this one over this one if you're just using it for a sight riser. And for all you guys that are using your Milsig M17s, this will provide a nice little AR look, if I might say that, or your Honor Corps markers, because this can also be used as a sight riser, as I said. Great for attaching your optics, gives you more of a tactical look and feel. So as you can see, put it back on the the 98. It's now set up to have a front quick reaction red-green dot assembly, as well as allowing it to work with your iron sights. If your dot sight goes down, you can just take this off and roll with your iron. Now, For all you guys that are more retro, one of the oldest sights would be this A2 style carry handle rear sight assembly. This thing has been on AR platforms since the A3 model came out, though they kept the A2 sight assembly with the windage, the elevation, to allow it to work with your A3 styles. You also have it set up with the rail adapter up here on the carry handle, so that way you're easily able to look down the hole for your sight. That way you can see your iron sight if you don't want to use your scope. Stuff like this in earlier variants on the A1 has been around for a long time. This thing was on the Car 15s, M16s, all with that little screw in here. As you can see, that way guys are able to attach scopes and various sighting features even during Vietnam. So that's as far as I know on that situation, as far as this goes. But the design is still the same. So if you wanted to, instead of having a carry handle set up like this, you could go a little more retro with something that's more like a carry handle, yet you still have your rail as a separate piece if you want. You guys toss it on here, and you can still use the carry handle. You can still attach a sight. Works pretty damn well. Yeah, I know for all you guys that are like AK guys, you're thinking, what the hell did I just do to this gun? But that's just my opinion on this stuff. It does have its benefits, it does have its drawbacks, but I'll let you be the judge on that. Last thing we're going to look at for this particular portion are magnified sights, your scopes. Now, for any paintball player who's using standard paintballs with their mag-fed markers or using a hopper-fed, this isn't a bad choice, especially if you're using standard paint. Because of the scope on here, this is a 4 power, also adjustable for your windage and your elevation. This thing is good mainly as an observation tool, or if you're in the role of a designated marksman. But a first strike shooter, this thing is the best concept if you're going for long range precision shooting. Now, you could slide this onto your marker without any problem. I'm using my MK7 here as an example piece. So having it set up like this would allow you to have an ideal sniper platform if you run first strike rounds. That being said, scopes and sights in general, they don't weigh much. They won't affect your center of gravity as much as far as the overall setup for your guns. Now, we're going to be moving on into barrel sets as well as a few other little increments, so we'll be back in a minute. Okay, now we're back, and the next part of this is we're going to be discussing your front end setups like barrel lengths as well as attachments such as hand grips and grenade launchers. Now, as you can see, most of the guns here have pretty long barrels. Longest one being on the 98 Custom here, which is 16 inches long. The general setup for this one was more around the lines of a machine gun than anything else. With the Alpha Black here, this thing was designed to be our automatic rifle as well as the assault weapon system. The X7 here has a 13-inch with a removable flash hider, so you can slide this part off and you could add your various silencers, mock suppressors, and different muzzle devices like that just for the fun of it. Now, with that being said, the length of the barrel is going to determine a few things. Accuracy at distance, whether you're going for close quarters or something a little more long range. The barrel, the length of the barrel, as well as the porting and how the inside of the barrel too will be very determining factors. As you can see, the Slapco Big Shot Assault Barrel is 14 inches in length with the addition of the AR style birdcage flash hider, but the internals of it allow you to have, well, for me anyway, it's tighter and gives me a little more of that long range hit, especially if you're using field grade paint or you're using cheapo paint that you can get at your local Walmart. This thing wasn't exactly meant to shoot. When I got it, it wasn't intended for shooting brittle balls, but I digress. The porting on the barrel also is a determining factor, but I'm not going to get into details on that one because of the time constraints involved. So anyway, your barrel length also falls into the center of gravity for your marker and the overall balance of it. The longer the barrel, you get better range, better accuracy, especially if you're doing CQB, but in a close quarters environment, the longer the barrel, the more cumbersome it becomes. That's why a lot of players will opt to use a folding or retractable buttstock on their markers. The other thing with that would be, as I said, with the length, center of gravity, the long barrel markers with the stocks folded in or in close, like on the Alpha Black here, that'll make the marker more front heavy. The shorter it is, it balances it out, and that's if you're not using any heavy items or anything like that on there. Now, we'll be moving on to what little attachments you can put on there, so give me one moment. Okay, got some last item add-ons that I'm going to be talking about for the front end portion of this video. So we got two other add-ons that players may look at, some may overlook, but it depends upon a lot of your circumstances, like if you play at night, if your field will allow stuff like this. But we've got marker mounted tactical lights and laser sights. Now let's go with the laser sight first, because this is the gray area type deal. Now, general safety rules and common sense apply to this particular item. You do not, under any circumstances, aim the laser directly into the face of another player. This is great. This would be great for center mass shots, or under low light conditions if you need to point out to a teammate where to go
during an assault on its objective in a scenario. And this laser in particular is green, so this is great for real low light situations. This particular laser is made by Acid Tactical. I'm not sure if they still sell this particular one, but I've had this laser for a good 5-6 years. This thing has not let me down whatsoever. This one is powered by a CR123A battery, giving you years of excellent use. You could have it as a end cap push button, or you can actually run the same one off a pressure switch. Now, second item is the tactical flashlight. For those players who pride themselves on their stealth, a tac light is good depending upon your circumstances. If it's just you creeping through a building or some type of structure in a CQB game, or playing under low light conditions, if you need to illuminate something for your team, you can do that. This particular model, also an Acid Tactical item. Not sure if you can see the little Acid logo right here, but this particular model has a rechargeable battery. So this one can give you a lot of versatility. Unlike the laser sight I showed, this one also comes with a end cap push button, or in its current setup as a pressure switch, so you could mount it onto your marker as far as having it on the vert grip, as far as having it on the pistol grip of the gun itself, or on the handguard. Now, this one is a 3-function. You got your basic bright light, you've got your dimmer lower light, and my personal favorite, you've got the strobe light. Now, I reviewed this several years ago for Shooting Hot magazine, or when I was doing the Ford report, I forget which one, but the strobe light function is ideal for disorienting people. I probably wouldn't recommend this as far as doing it deliberately in paintball because of epileptic reasons, but aside from that, with the strobe, it works great for crowd control. It works great for tactical stuff if you guys do anything around the lines of SWAT team or corrections. You have a means to disorient a subject if they're becoming aggressive or anything like that, and would allow you to easily take control of the situation without having to use lethal force. But I digress from that. Generally speaking, tactical flashlights are great for low light. They're ideal for close-in work if you're sweeping a room. Little rule of thumb on that one, if you're running low light conditions and you want to have your team stacked up behind one guy with the light on, so you're working behind a single light source, that way opposing players or enemies won't know how many people there are. They'll just assume it's one guy on their own instead of a team. So keep that in mind if you're doing close quarters work. And after that, we'll be moving on to our final piece before our final thoughts, so we'll be right back. Okay, now before I get into my final thoughts, we're going to be discussing the sling as far as setting up your marker. I've got 1, a 2, and a 3-point sling. Each sling provides their own unique benefits. Now, what I've got on here right now is a Gibbs Paintball single point tactical sling, which is pretty much a adjustable sling with a quick detach buckle on here, and it's hooked into the stock of this 98 AK setup. Now, setting up a sling is pretty simple, pretty straightforward, depending upon what you've got. This 98 has no real sling attachment points on here, so I decided to improvise one using a sling ring adapter that I got with my 3-point. I attached it onto a piece of the 98 stock so that way I could put this sling on. Now, the benefit to a 1-point sling is that it's a single point of contact and allows the marker or the weapon system that you're operating to be fairly steady in terms of multiple things. That allows you the freedom to bring it up, bring it to your shoulder when you need to, and allows for good marker or weapon retention if you have to go for a secondary. But the drawback to it is, especially with these bungee style, it does tend to bounce around a little bit, and you have to reach down a little lower depending upon the weight to get to the pistol grip, to get your hands on it, and to bring it up. Now, in my opinion, 1-point slings aren't bad depending upon what you're using them for. This is mainly user preference, but the 1-point is more or less a glorified lanyard in my opinion. Other than that, it's a good piece of kit to work with depending upon what you need it for and what your primary needs are, as well as your position within a team. Now let's move on from that. Okay, moving on to the second sling setup, which is a 2-point sling. This one is made by Acid Tactical, which is a 550 cord, or paracord as it's also called. The 2-point sling setup on a marker is, or a weapon system, is your classic. It's been used since organized armies or shooters in general wanted to have a weapon system slung to them, so that's where we got the 2-point from. As you can see, the way I'm carrying it right now, it's still secure on me. I can still keep it on me if I need to use both my hands for anything, but in the event I need to get my gun up in a hurry, I could easily do that. And I still feel it tighten to the shoulder, so with the sling as is, I still have positive weapon retention. I can still maneuver it and bring it down, or I can easily have it in its more traditional sense, and I can still get to it in a pinch. Now, there are some nuances to setting up a 2-point sling, so give me 1 minute to show you that. So we'll be back in 1 moment. Okay, now another way you could have your 2-point sling set up would be something like this. This is kind of like what they did back in Vietnam with the CAR-15s. Now, as you can see, this is also somewhat of an Israeli-inspired thing because I've got a hook up on the front sight setup, as well as onto the stock itself on its sling attachment point. Good thing about this is you can still carry in a traditional sense, but you also have the extended freedom of movement, so that way you could have the gun slung somewhat like this and still be able to get it shouldered when you need to. Also good for if you have to shoot low at the hip. This is more or less a commando style if you gotta clear out a room. Works, comfortable, and pretty ideal for just about anything. Just with the single point, you're still able to have a great deal of movement depending upon your setup. Also works for length of pole. Now for 2-point, This only shows its adaptability and its capability of fulfilling multiple roles. You can also set this up to be a single point if you need to, but I'm not going to go into that one. I'll let the end user figure out that one. Now we're moving on into the 3-point slings. Okay, now we're back, and the third sling setup is going to be a 3-point sling. As you can see, 1, 2, and 3 different points of contact on the marker and the sling, so that way you have positive weapon or marker retention at all times. Good thing about a 3-point sling is its overall versatility compared to the single and the 2-point sling. As you can see, you can easily have it slung kind of like a 1-point, yet still have the dynamics of the 2-point. So with that, I can easily bring it up, still keep positive control of my marker, or I can easily run it as if it were a 2-point sling. As you can see, easily carry it as a 2-point and sling it like a 2-point, though this is a 3-point sling. This is the reason why I love the 3-point sling system. It allows me to have the greater versatility of either the 1 or the 2, yet in a tight, controllable package. Now, still moving on into the sling idea before the final thought. As you can see, I've got no sling setup. I got no sling points per se on the gun, with the exception of the stock and the front piece. Now, if your marker doesn't have positions on here for a sling in general, don't worry. You can go to companies like Blue Force Gear. They make slings that are set up to wrap around the gun. If you're looking for a good sling, Blue Force Slings are a company with the bulk of their sling products designed by Larry Vickers, who's ex-Delta Force, and his experience has come into a lot of things over the years, from guns to accessories, from his experience as a Special Forces operator. So you can check that out at blueforcegear.com. I'll post a link in the description to this video. Now, for this sling, you've got the quick detach. These were also done by Acid Tactical for the RIS mount here. Now, any guns that has an RIS mount will accept sling attachments such as these. These things are great. They are adjustable for just about any position. You could have this as loose or as tight on the gun as you like it. And it allows for a more custom setup for your gun, though the back piece also has a sling attachment point right here. And if I was a right-hand shooter, I could also have it attached here if I so desired, to make it more adaptable for a left or right-hand shooter. The thing with the SCW stock, you also have a point right up here, but I wouldn't go for that because of the folding stock. That would throw off the stock and the sling entirely and make it harder to use when the stock is folded. So best bet, keep it set up with it in the quick detach point and a quick detach point here. That way it makes it a lot easier to have your stock folded as an independent system for close-in work. Aside from that, that about covers it on everything, and we'll be moving into my final thoughts. Okay, now, gotta do a little more hands-on for this little demonstration part of the video, but anyway, screw it, here we go. Now, discussing ideas of what to add onto the front end of your gun. I discussed barrel length, stuff like that, but with this particular portion, we're going to be discussing the add-ons to your marker if you've got RIS capability on it. For many players, the most common thing you'll add on is a vertical grip of some type. Now, this grip is nice. It gives you a more natural feel when you have the marker shouldered. Plus, it's easy to hold on to, and it's a lot better than holding it like you would a traditional rifle. That way the little corners of the rail don't snag your hand or anything like that. That's the reason why a lot of players would opt for a vertical grip. Makes it easier to maneuver with. Real steel shooters, it gives a better controllability, especially if they're shooting on the move, shooting fast, and things of that nature. Now, with that being said, you can find ones that fold. You can find a myriad of vertical grips for your marker or anything like that. Just gives you one of those functional little pieces you can hold, bring to your shoulder, things like that. It works great, and it gives you a nice tactical feel to it. Now, moving on, second nice little option aside from vertical grips is the tried and true grenade launcher. Now, grenade launchers in paintball are a gray area. Some fields will allow them, some fields won't. Depends upon who's cutting their insurance. Now, grenade launchers serve not just a nice little badass intimidation factor. It is heavy, I will say that, but the function part is the fact that this is a specialized platform that you can work with. Open it up, pop a 40mm shell in there, Mad Dogs, S Thunders. If it's 40mm, it'll work. If you guys are into the Russian stuff like the GB25, the shells that paintballers and airsoft guys use for that one will not fit the 203s or the variants on that, like for your SCAR or your HK style. So keep that one in mind when you're picking a grenade launcher. Now, as I said, this isn't just for looks. This is also a functional piece. Just like a vertical grip allows you to have better controllability, the grenade launcher allows you to take out certain things, like you can shoot one of those Nerf rockets into the bunker, eliminate an entire group of players in there. Anti-vehicle, shoot the Nerf football at a truck or a tank during a major scenario. You got that dealt with, but other than that, a grenade launcher is ideal for close quarters battle, especially the S Thunder type or the Mad Dog grenade shells. You gas it up, you fill it with some paintballs, and you've got a shotgun. Now, I've done the review on that one for S Thunder, so I may post a link in the description to this video on that one, so that way you could see what I'm talking about in better detail. But aside from that, this gives the player a nice little alternative. Aside from just having a rifle setup, they've also got a grenade launcher underneath here, but in close quarters, it's a shotgun. It's devastating, and it gets your point across big time. Now, you got that. Alternatives to the grenade launcher would be some players actually take something like Karmatech rifle, and they'll modify a marker like a A5, put it underneath there, and use that as a crazy little secondary. Or if you want something like a pump action master key or something like that. Some players have modded the Spider Hammer 7 model so that way they have it on a mag fed, load out with first strike. So if you're running like a Milsig or anything like that with standard paint, you also have a mag fed first strike marker right underneath there if you gotta do some precision shots on the fly. So to each his own. Any of you mod gods that may be interested in that, that would be something interesting. Now, final add-ons that could be used for the front end barrel wise would be the bipod. Now, the bipod does add a little bit of heft to a marker if you've got it deployed. Folded up, it's not too bad. But if you're using it for sniper work, you've got more compact models out there for it that are RIS capable, or they have a means to go around your barrel or inside a part of the handguard of the marker or rifle you're working with. Now, as I said, there's a little bit of heft to it when you're using it as a machine gun or as a sniper rifle, but the beauty of a bipod to be attached to a marker would be for a more stable shooting platform. So if you're in a shootout, or if you got a structure you can work with, or just a basic concrete wall, fold it out, get on top, and you can easily use it to have a stable shooting platform. For snipers, this would be ideal for precision shooting. For machine gunners, this would be good to provide a semi-fixed base of fire. So, depends upon what you're doing with that. Now, aside from those particular aspects of barrel-mounted options, we also have some other accessories for that, so we'll be moving right along.